Good afternoon and welcome to this presentation on how a non-market strategy can liberalize visa reforms for high-skilled IT workers. In summary, this presentation suggests a non-market strategy in 5 phases. The strategy, which is built up on Barron's 4 I's, analyzes how and why these particular steps were chosen. In doing so, it tries to make informed decisions on what institutions to pursue, what interests to cater, and what arguments to use when providing actors with relevant information. The first step is to understand what the goal of our issue actually is and what possible solutions we have to attain that goal. The overarching goal of this strategy is to liberalize visa regimes so that high-skilled IT workers are allowed to work in Silicon Valley. In order for this to happen, there are 2 necessary conditions. The first is that there is a reform of the current immigration policies, which, considering the preceding rhetoric of the Republican Party, can be seen as likely. The second necessary condition, which emphasizes a reform that favors the IT experts, is less likely to happen without our involvement. This is why a strategy needs to be put in place to come up with a possible reform process. I've come up with 4 possible solutions, of which 3 are deemed unlikely due to the different reasons mentioned in the appendix. Hence, we are left with option number 3. That is, a reform that favors high-skilled workers in general and in turn allow us to influence what skills should be stressed in the proposed legislation. In this slide, I've tried to show why alternative 3 is the best possible solution. I've done it by highlighting that the US has many of the characteristics that in theory should prove favorable for a visa reform that supports high-skilled workers. By looking at the slide, we can see that 7 of the main 9 influencing factors can be said to be part of the American society and its current government. However, our strategy must do more than rely on this current environment, and we must ask ourselves how we can influence legislation further. To answer this question, we must first understand what institutions determine policy reform. There are 3 possible sources for legislation, but we can disregard the judicial and limit our options to the executive and legislative branch. Thus, one strategy would be to influence executive power. This deliberate strategy would include lobbying and information gathering for the transition group and staff members of Trump's administration. Even though this might prove highly effective, it has a problem with both risk and reversibility. This is mainly due to the fact that the administration is essentially one entity, and if any initial attempt at influence would fail, it might decrease the potential for future influence. Therefore, the most achievable strategy would be to try and influence the legislative branch. One large advantage with this scenario is that the most influential person in this branch, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Paul Bryan, and Democrat Speaker, already pushes for legislation that shifts from extended family reunification to high-skilled immigration. It is also beneficiary in the sense that it makes it possible to pursue many influential stakeholders at once and allow for the targeting of specific congressmen. Therefore, a strategy that tries to influence the speakers and the congressmen can be seen as the most appropriate one, and we need to ask ourselves what the interests of these actual actors really are and how we best influence them accordingly. Here we assume that congressmen and speakers' main goal is to be either re-elected or appointed to more influential positions. For that to happen, they need at least one of the 3 things in this slide. I will argue that the use of interest groups and the effort to influence speakers through information should be viewed as the most favorable solution to our strategy. The reason being that the speaker serves as the gatekeeper when deciding on who sits on the legislative committees and to whether or not the bill actually reaches a voting process in Congress. The congressmen then, who are then selected to represent the parties in the committees, are in turn dependent on good information to make a quick and effective legislative process. Consequently, this serves as a great opportunity for the interest groups to provide speakers with the information to choose the best suited congressman to be in charge of the bill writing, and for the congressmen to use great information in their respective committees. The last step then is to understand what information they need and what arguments are needed to put a favorable bill through Congress. The most important thing for the interest group is to help the people who write the proposed reforms. The second is to come up with arguments that puts any reasonable doubt about why the high-skill quotas shouldn't be chosen in the hands of the speaker and congressmen. In this slide, I suggest 5 such arguments. The third thing is to inform bureaucratic immigration agencies in ways that make them favor skilled IT workers over applicants from other sectors. In summary, this strategy suggests the formation of a collective interest group with the purpose of gathering information to be used mainly in efforts to lobby the legislative branch. The strategy focuses on the speaker and the selective congressmen that in turn would be chosen for the subcommittees that will write the propositions on immigration. With that, I thank you for watching.